Hey y'all, how's it going? Welcome back to Farmer Brown's Paradise Homesteading Adventures. This will be episode 16. Today we are out working in our landscape beds and in the garden with a lot of little hodgepodge things, so I will probably divide this into 2 episodes. But first I'm going to show you what we are additionally planting in the way of perennials and exactly what we're adding and amending to our very clay soil. If you watch the shade garden tour, I mentioned about the Bruneras, the Siberian Bugloss. Let's see. Oh yeah, Alexander's Great Siberian Bugloss Brunera. So they finally came in. I ordered 5 more, and I'm placing them in between these hosta piles. I don't know what to call them, arrangements. These will get huge, and the hostas will too. So hopefully this will just line the pathway here that we have with just some beautiful different green shades of foliage. So it's time to plant the Bruneras. As I mentioned, we have very bad clay soil. So one of the things I always want to add when I'm planting any kind of perennial is compost, and I use this mushroom compost. The other thing that I have started adding recently that I have found to be extremely good for the plant is this right here. It is organic. It's made by Espoma. It's Biotone Starter Plus. So by starter, meaning that you use it when you're initially planting something. You don't use it in progressive years. You use like a maintenance type fertilizer. But the reason, after researching this one, the reason I like it, other than it being organic, is that it has 2 things in it that I know are extremely important to the growth and health, a healthy start to a plant. And those are microbes and mycorrhizae. Now I've talked about mycorrhizae before out in the garden and shown you how I add that to each individual vegetable plant that I plant in the garden. But this right here, the microbes, well, what are microbes? Microbes are beneficial bacteria that help to break down the food for the plant, the food that you've put down in that hole. It makes the food more readily accessible, more quickly to the plant. It's going to help the health of the plant and help it to grow a lot faster and a lot quicker. The other thing about this particular brand is it has 50% more microbes than any of your standard maintenance type fertilizers. Now the mycorrhizae I've talked about before, but let's briefly talk about what that is. Mycorrhizae is a naturally grown fungi, and they bring balance back to the soil. And what it does, it has to touch the roots. If it's not down there by the roots, it's of no purpose, because what it does is it has a symbiotic relationship with the plant's roots, and it colonizes along the root structure. To put it simplistically, as an example, imagine my pinky finger is a root. Well, normally the root only has 1 point of entry for water and nutrients. But with the mycorrhizae, it colonizes all along that root stem, creating multiple openings or channels for that root to absorb nutrients and moisture. So obviously, if it has more ports of entry, so to speak, it's going to benefit the plant, grow faster, grow more root structures, and you're going to get a very healthy plant. As I said, this is only added at the very beginning, and that's why it is a starter. The other thing I like about this being organic, and it couldn't be organic if it had these, but it does not have any fillers or any sludge. There's no sand, no kind of filler, and if you've researched anything about sludge, I wouldn't want to be adding that anyway, especially in the vegetable garden. So what I'm going to do here, we have a hole. With this starter, you use about a cup for any size up to 2 gallons, and then it goes up a little bit. So here's what came out of the hole. It may not look all that bad because there are some, the top couple of inches is kind of nice actually, because all of this has broken down. All of this mulch and things under these trees has broken down over the course of a few years. But I'm going to add in pretty much just a third to half equal parts of compost with the existing soil. And now we plant. This is not particularly root bound. Plus, I could be wrong, but I think Bruneras are much like hostas. They're a tuber. So, I don't know, it's pretty tight. But I think it's a tuber, so I think we're going to be okay. You want to plant it where it's at the same height as the existing soil line. All right, when I finish, I will water this in. I have 5 more to do over here. Next up are the Hakonocloa macra areola, or variegated Japanese forest grass. Again, if you watched my video on the shade garden here, talked about this plant, which I absolutely love, but they're kind of a slow grower, and they only get 12 to 18 inches tall, but they do get at least that in width, or even a little more so. But I only had 6, and they're tiny. So I have gotten 6 more to put kind of in between, maybe a little further back than the existing 6. So same order of planting. The Biotone Starter Plus in the bottom, and mushroom compost mixed in with the existing soil that was removed. This next little project is also one that I talked about in the shade garden tour, and that is to propagate some of these oak leaf hydrangeas by laying the stems on the ground. I've never done it before, but I have researched it quite a bit. There seem to be a couple of different thoughts about it. I'm going to use both methods that I have read and researched. One of them is to actually scrape back the bark a little bit where you're going to want it to touch the soil, and the other is to have at least 2 leaf nodes under the soil. So this branch is already laying down from the base of the hydrangea tree. It's got a lot going on here, but I'm going to make sure this leaf node down here, and this one that I just broke off, maybe this one, will be under the ground. And then on the back side, I'm just going to kind of scrape off a little bit of this bark, exposing the green, I think you call that the cambium maybe? Is that what it's called? Cambium? Go a little further. Now, when you're doing this, it says that you need to have about 2 inches of soil. I don't know that I have 2 inches of soil. I may just have to come back and put some potty mix on top of it. It'd be easier than trying to dig this out. So basically, going from about right here on out. And yeah, I'm definitely going to have to put some potting mix on top of it to hold it down, because it is a healthy plant. It's full of moisture. It suggests using some rocks. So I'm going to put my rocks on first in my location where I know I need to add a bunch of potting mix. And I will go get that. I ended up doing 3 branches, so I didn't really have any more rocks around, so this will kind of help fill in if it works. So I've got that one. And then over here, let me switch angles. And then I've got this one here. I actually dug out 2 inches and buried it rather than just putting potting soil on top. Here's my rock. I'm trying to hide it though, because Lucy likes to carry off rocks. So maybe she won't be out here sniffing to find out what I was doing. And the third one is over here. I'll show you. This is the third one. Again, I dug out a little trench and I have 2 or 3 leaf nodes and my rocks hopefully hidden. Now my next project, these are all oak leaf hydrangeas in here. Right behind me you might see this shovel. That is a ruby slippers hydrangea, and I want to move it, transplant it to this hole over here, because I have something else that I want to plant there, which I'll talk about next. As I had said in this area in the tour, back here are all the oak leaf hydrangeas, and these are also oak leaves, but they're ruby slippers. They don't get as tall, about 3 feet. Anyway, they're not very filled in, and I wanted something in the center here that would have color and add a lot of interest. And when I was at the garden center last week, or a few days ago, I found this. It's called a mountain fire Pieris japonica. It doesn't grow terribly fast, but it will get in zone 7 and 8, it's going to get about 5-6 feet tall. But it has a lot of beautiful interest in multiple seasons, plus it's an evergreen. And of course these oak leaf hydrangeas are not. They look like sticks in the winter, so at least we'll have something nice and green here in the center. Now in the springtime, it's one of the first to bloom, and it has these beautiful little white flowers on it. I'll show you a picture. So that is what it's going to look like in the spring. All of these little fuzzy things here used to be the little flowers. That's what's left over. But the new foliage right after it flowers is kind of a reddish leaf, and then it greens out after that. But planting these, especially when you have clay soils like we do, you need to add a second amendment other than compost, because this really likes drought conditions. The worst enemy for a Pieris is actually too much water, root rot, that kind of thing. So we have a nice slope here, so that part's good. The water will drain off. But what I have added, I dug out the hole, and I'm mixing in the compost just like I did with all the other things. But this soil conditioner right here is the other amendment that I am adding. It will keep things aerated and keep it from holding water. It's kind of a pine bark, very fine pine conditioner. So again, I will add my biotone in. Now also with Pieris, you don't want to plant it exactly even with your soil level. You're going to want it to be slightly above the soil line. So Setting that down, I think I need to add just a little bit more in. That looks better. I'm going to put the tallest branch toward the back here. And then this will just all mix in the soil, the compost, and the conditioner as I backfill it here. That's done. Mountain Fire PRS, I think it will add some nice interest in that little space. And it will also not only get 5 to 6 feet tall, but it will also get 5 to 6 feet around. And in zone 7 and 8, I'm in zone 8, they really need to be planted with just part sun. And this will get some early morning sun and then again late afternoon sun. So hopefully it will be a perfect spot for it. Last up, a new lavender. Up at the entrance to our driveway, as you're driving up on each side before the curve, we have 2 little sections of pampas grass. And it's okay, but I really would like to do more with these 2 spaces. So for now, to add some color, I have planted 2 lavenders on each side. This is a brand new variety from Proven Winners this year. It's called Sweet Romance. And not only does it have these vibrant deep purple blooms, but it only gets about 12 to 18 inches tall and 12 to 18 inches wide. So they need to be planted in full sun. This will definitely be a test because both of these spots collectively are, you know, one gets more morning sun, one gets more afternoon sun. They both get a little bit of midday sun. So hopefully there will be enough hours for these to thrive. If not, then I will have to change it to an absolutely 8 hours plus full sun location, which we don't have very many of those. So this will be another little experiment. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Next up, we'll be updating a tour of our vegetable garden and showing you how I do some slings for some melons and some huge winter squash. And remember, bye and have a good one.